Hello everybody and welcome back to another Duskmourn set review. Today we're going to be going over all of the black cards, giving them a rating between 1 and 10 based on how we think they're going to do in the average limited deck. We've got Yanks on the call. As always, how you doing, Yanks?
Good. How about you?
Good, good. Are you excited for black?
Yeah, it should be good to see what sort of removal we're going to see in this set.
Yeah. As always, you'll do the tapied cards.
Yep.
All right. Next, first up, we've got an Amalgam, 3 mana for a horror creature. I try to say it a little bit more enunciated, which just comes out terrible. It's a 3/2 with flash, and when it attacks, you can surveil 1. So flash creature is always good. It's also an enchantment, which is pretty relevant in Orzhov, so I do like that. But it doesn't seem like it's anything special. It's got a tiny butt for a flash creature.
Yeah, we've actually seen a lot of flash creatures so far, and this is fairly unimpressive.
Yeah, agreed. So I think it's very playable, but it's just a 5.
Agreed.
All
Kind of
right.
filler.
Moving on to Balemerk Leech. Looks like it's coming out of the Beetlejuice grave there. 2 mana for 2/2 with Eerie. And when you trigger Eerie, whenever each opponent will lose a life. So just a little drain. I like the bear with upside, but again, just a 5.
Yeah, good in 2 HG, though.
Yes, good in 2 HG, but I will say that I do think that enchantments are quite good. So I think that this would be something I would be playing quite often in black. There's a lot of rooms. You get multiple triggers from that. So this is a 2-drop I'm pretty happy to just put in my deck.
Agreed.
Cackling Slasher. This is a 4 mana 3/3 with Death Touch, and when it enters with a +1/+1 counter on it, if a creature died this turn, so this is like the opposite of the lizard. It gets a counter if something has died versus if you've dealt damage. So that card was pretty mediocre. I expect this one to also be pretty mediocre. Rakdos does sacrifice things, so you can sort of enable it a little bit better with black in this set than you can typically, but I don't love it.
It doesn't have to be your creature, right? If you just some sort of kill spell or...
Yeah, but I just meant like normally if a creature has to die, sometimes it's a little harder because you have to have a kill spell or you have to get into combat and they don't
Sure.
block, you know what I mean? Whereas like in this set specifically, you have an added bonus in that there are a ton of little shitters that are meant to be sacked pretty cheaply. So I think it's just going to be easier to activate than you typically would think. By a little.
Sure, I always find it hard to evaluate these, like, mid-sized Death Touchers. Like, I tend to want my Death Touchers to be cheap and small.
It is nice. Like, it means they can't double block like 2/2s. So they are...
Sure.
I kind of like them in the mid-size too if they're not overcosted. And if you're regularly getting this for 4 mana, that feels pretty good to me.
That's true.
But I still think it's just whatever. I think it's just filler. So it's just a 5.
We're on a string of filler cards to start here.
It's probably like 4.5. I like the 2-drop Leech better than this. But whatever, it's playable. Come Back Wrong. 3 mana for a sorcery, destroy target creature. If a creature card is put into a graveyard this way, return it to the battlefield under your control. Sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. Huh. Your next end step at sorcery speed, so you never get to attack with this?
I say, yeah, it doesn't get haste, but you get whatever ETB triggers might be relevant.
Or like a sack outlet, like or sack trigger, right? So you're like, kill your thing, get a free sacrifice. It's still 3 mana, destroy a card at sorcery speed. Like that's still fine. And it's got a nice little bonus.
Yeah, definitely be interested to see what we see that works with this.
Just the like the Rakdos sacrifice side of things alone makes me like, this is okay. For the cost, I still think this is an 8.
Probably. I'm almost getting hesitant to say 3 mana sorcery speed, just kill something is an 8 anymore. I mean, this is obviously a little better than that, but...
Yeah. Sorry about the Borks,
probably
guys.
Still is.
Yeah. Low 8 then for you?
Yep, I think so.
Next up, Commune with Evil. 3 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You gain 3 life. Again, just sporadic life gain stapled onto a bunch of stuff here. Dig 4 cards deep, but you only get 1. But there is good graveyard synergy, so I feel like that is the deck that this wants to be in, but not otherwise.
Yeah, if I'm not using my graveyard, then I don't want this card at all.
Yeah. It's a bit of a split rating. I think this is like a 5 and a 2.
Sure, I can get behind that.
Like, even in the deck that wants to do its graveyard, this is still just kind of like, it does the job, it's filler. It's not like a thing that you're like, oh, I need to pick this card up to make this deck function.
No, yeah, it would be much more exciting if it was at instant speed.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, Cracked Skull, 3 mana for an enchant aura. When it enters, look at the target player's hand. You may choose a non-land card from them. They discard it. When an enchant creature is dealt damage, destroy it. So you can put it onto their creature, thought seize them, and then they can't, like, block your shitters.
And can't work and can't attack into them either.
Yeah.
I guess that's okay. I mean, I don't want to pay 3 mana for straight discard, but this is mostly a little better. I guess it does require a creature to play.
I mean, you could put it on yours, but I assume you put it on theirs. And if at 3
Yeah.
mana, someone's going to have something. I don't like this card. I'm going to say this is a 3.
I'm not a fan of this either. It's an interesting design we haven't seen before, but I don't think it's gonna make the cut.
All right. Cynical Loner, 2 mana for a 3/1. Can't be blocked by glimmers, which is nice because the glimmers are 1/1s. We've been seeing that sort of built in protection for our 3/1s lately. It has survival. That means if it's tapped at the beginning of your second main, you get to search your library for a card and put it into your graveyard and shuffle. So I did play this during the early access, and it was pretty nifty in that. It let me put stuff in the graveyard when I had recursion stuff. I was in Golgari recursion, but also a good chunk of the time I didn't, and I just thinned my deck, and I was just able to get like 2 or 3 like lands into the graveyard. It also helped with Delirium. I was able to get the shittiest artifact I had to trigger Delirium, which was
Okay,
cool.
see that.
So I mean, I'm not saying it's like I'm over the moon about it, but like it was pretty flexible in that it also is just an on-rate curve filler. So it did a lot of things for a lot of the game plans for Black.
Yeah, it definitely kind of similar to the Commune with Evil, right? Like there are just decks that don't want this card at all.
I mean,
But
a 2 mana 3/1, like that's the low end, which you just need a high number of 2 drops these days because of how quick the formats are going. I don't think there's any decks that don't want that.
maybe yeah, I guess that's okay. I don't know. I'm not. It's just that feels so low power level compared to everything we're seeing nowadays.
I mean, we just had a string of like 4s and under. I think this. I'm not saying it's insane. I just think it's a 5.
Okay, I can get behind that. It's just saying it's filler 5. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like a vanilla 2/3, or I'm sorry, a vanilla 3/1, we are like very not happy with at this point.
Agreed.
But that survival ability really was flexible to make me think that this is good enough to play without being sad about it.
Fair enough.
Dashing Bloodsucker. We have a 4 mana 3/5 with Eerie. And what it will do is, I'm tired of reading the Eerie ability over and over again. It gets +2/+0 and gains lifelink until end of turn. Vampires having lifelink makes sense to me. I think it's flavorful, blood-flavored, flavorful. I think it's going to attack as a 4/5 pretty regularly with lifelink. And yeah, I think this is Blade. It is kind of fun seeing like which horror thing they like skirted copyright with. I bet you the lawyers were like, all right, fuck. All right, this is the most work we've ever had to do. We've ever done for a set. I think this is like just borderline 5.
I think so. I mean, if it's nice if you're playing things like the very first card we saw, which is like a flash enchantment. He's getting to have a 4/5 lifelinker on defense is pretty nice. But you've got to be, how many of those flash enchantments do you really end up with? So I think you're right. I think it's just filler.
And I think it's a 5 if you can trigger Eerie. If you have like a very low
Oh, yeah.
number of them or not, it's going to play down. Like,
Agreed.
just immediately drop out of playability. You need to have at least like 5 or 6 stray random targets, if not more.
Agreed.
Next up,
Defiled Crypt and Cadaver Lab. This room, Defiled Crypt is a 4 mana. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black horror enchantment creature token. Triggers only once per turn. Cadaver Lab for 1 mana. When you unlock this door, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
now I did play this a fair amount actually in the early access, and it was pretty useful. I think I had 2 in my sealed pool or something. It came in handy. I made a lot of 2/2s, and those 2/2s did make a huge difference. It made 1 on its own, and then I had like a green room that also brought something back, and then I had 1 creature that brought itself back, and that was just like the ball game. Now, not amazing, but Black also cares a ton about Eerie, which is the playing of enchantments and or the unlocking of rooms. So I do think that this is going to play a step above what it's doing, because it's going to enable all of your other cards.
Well, what's nice here is that you clearly want to do the more expensive side first, because then the cheaper side triggers it. But you also, even though it's a cheaper spell, you're not going to want to play it early anyway. So you're actually, not only do you want to play the more expensive side first, you're more likely to play it first.
Agreed. And like I like that the value side of this is so cheap. 5 mana is not that big of a deal versus 4. No. So you could just play this for 5 mana, get a big card back, and make a 2/2, and your opponent's like, oh, okay, the board state has drastically changed now.
Definitely. Gravediggers was always good. Now this takes a little more work, but you get more of the long-term benefits. So
I'm going to say this is like a 6.5.
That's exactly where I've got it.
It might be, I don't know. So when I played this, it was sealed. So like it did very well. It might underperform in draft. I don't know, just based on how fast the format will be, but we'll see. Next up, we have Demonic Council. 2 mana for a sorcery. Search your library for a demon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. Or Delirium, you get to instead search your library for a card and put it into your hand. You don't have to reveal it. I never liked tutors. You have to have like over 2 big bombs that you're willing to pay 2 additional mana for. So I'm not into these. I'm going to say it's a 3.
3 works. I'm just generally not playing these cards. Give me actual demonic tutor, sure. Otherwise, probably not.
All right. Next up,
another room. We have Derelict Attic and Widow's Walk. Derelict Attic is 3 mana. When you unlock this door, draw 2, lose 2. And Widow's Walk is 4 mana. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +1/+0 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. So I really I've always kind of liked the Derelict Attic effects, 3 mana, some form of draw 2, lose 2 in black.
Yep.
Now, usually, lately, they've come with like Scry or Surveil, but here instead you get the other half of a room. And
the attacking alone with Death Touch, like, black is not typically going super wide, sometimes if it's paired with green, but in other archetypes like Dimir, you're going more like control-y routes. I don't even want to say tall, because oftentimes you still have small creatures. You're just outvaluing them with like other instants and sorceries or enchantments, things like that. So, I mean, you can put in some really good work by giving your poopier creatures Death Touch.
Definitely. It just lets you sneak some things through. We've seen some creatures that have like curiosity effects where you draw cards if you hit them. So,
yeah,
it makes those things easier to get through.
I think this is okay. I'm just going to say this is like a 5.5.
Yeah, a little better than filler, but yep,
not by a ton.
Works. Not by much, yep.
Just want to shout out, thank you so much for the compliments for Decked Out. I appreciate it. If you guys are on YouTube, I don't know if you guys know this. I try not to post too much cross-platformy stuff, but if you're into Commander, I do have a Commander show. It's called Decked Out EDH. You should check it out. Next up, we have Doomsday Executioner. Black, for a 6/6 demon with flying, and when it enters, if it was cast, each player exiles all but 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. I don't understand. So you remove 6 cards, or remove all of the cards except for 6, and then you are on a 3-turn clock?
Yes.
0.
I mean, I think this card's a 0 before you even get to that point because of black, 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 black.
I I think monocolor
But
might be a thing in this format a little bit, but agreed.
sure, so yeah, it might be, and there is some black, white reanimate stuff. But then again, like you said, once you comes out, okay, you're on a clock faster than this is putting them on.
No, because it says if it was cast.
Oh, okay.
So if you
So
reanimator
sure.
it, you just get a 6/6 with flying and you draw an extra card and that's busted.
Yeah.
But you have to
Yeah.
have the reanimator deck and you have to have a reliable way to get it into your graveyard, either by discarding or by manifest dreading or whatever. If for some reason you get stuck with this in your hand, it's literally a brick. So
Yeah. This is why I'm so surprised they made Reanimator like a central theme, because even in things like Vintage Cube, Reanimator can be tough to be consistent because it's a three-part combo, right? You need the big creature, you need a way to get it in the graveyard, and you need a way to reanimate it.
yeah, I think it's stuff. I'm just gonna say it's a 0, and then there's gonna be one deck, like the most busted nutty reanimator deck. Will be like happy to play this because it's super consistent in getting cards into the yard and returning them, but like that's just gonna be like pie in the sky. So when you have that, sure, this is like an 8 or a 9, but that's never
And you can
happening.
and you can still basically treat it as a 0 because you're going to get it last pick because no one else wants it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I agree. All right. Enduring Tenacity. 4 mana for a 4/3 Glimmer Snake. It's an enchantment that says whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. Okay, we found it. Here's the payoff for having all of the random ass life gain and lifelink creatures stapled on, because we're already like halfway through the colors, and we've seen like more lifelink than we typically see in like every set. All like the last 3 sets combined. Last set, Bloomborough had 1 2/2 with lifelink,
That sounds right.
and that's it. All right, and then when it dies, if it was a creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So this is just the life gain payoff, and they can't really get rid of it, which is really really nice. They can they can kill it and then remove it with an enchantment removal, and that's a thing, but that takes a lot of value. Yeah, I think this is really cool. It's a lot slower and grindier. I think this is similar to like the blue one where you need to be at parity or better for this really to get going. I think this is weaker than the blue one.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, we haven't seen the red and green ones yet, but I think this is significantly worse than the
I
blue
think it
one
is
was.
green, black, blue. What did the white one do again?
Creature with power 2 or less enters battlefield. You draw a card, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, so I think red is best. I think white, and then blue, and then black, and then green is at the bottom. But anyway, this is a great card still. It's still a 4 mana, 4/3 with relevant creature type, and you're going to get some good triggers off of this just by accident. Even if you have no life gain deck, you're still going to have like 3 things that just randomly gain life. So we're still playing this.
I'm, I think this is a very much a split rating card. Like, I think in a lot of decks, I'm not playing this card.
A
I
4
don't
mana,
want just a
4/3
4 mana
that like
4/3.
is an enchantment in black, and like most of the black stuff really wants like the amount of eerie in black is a lot, so I want that stapled onto my creatures, and I don't think you're going to get out of black without having like 2 or 3 life gain things.
Yeah, I don't think the 2 or 3 life gain things is worth it, and I think we're seeing so many enchantments floating around that isn't. Well, it's not. It's certainly not a bad thing. It's not. You're going to find something better to put in
I don't
over
know.
this.
I don't know if you're going to find too much better than a 4/3 enchantment creature for 4 that has like some other side effects. Like it's still a rare. I think it's not a rare that you're over the moon about in most sets, but I certainly think I'm playing this. I would say this is a 6.
I think this is like a 3/7.
Damn, you really don't like that stat line. That's
No,
surprising.
I strongly dislike this card. I think it does nothing in a lot of decks.
But like we give like 3 mana. Trying to think, what do we expect for 4 mana?
Like 4 mana 4/3, if you ignore everything else, which you just on its face is terrible. Like, we're not playing that card ever.
Yeah, if you ignore everything else, like it being,
And then it builds up from there, but you're starting at a pretty low point.
yeah, I like it. I've really enjoyed Eerie, and I think that you want enchantments in every time you're playing black. So we're 2 points off. That'll be a good under or overperforming card for us in a few weeks.
Well, the next set will be out by then, so.
Fanatic of the Harrowing, 4 mana for a 2/2. When it enters, each player discards if you've also discarded this way. So if you had a card, you get to draw. This is okay. It's a little bad, poorly statted, but it's a good way to get the freaking 6 black demon into your graveyard.
That's true.
I think
It'll definitely still be in your hand.
I think it's just okay. It's good for reanimator decks, but not otherwise. It's not an enchantment. Human clerics don't seem super relevant. I'm going to say this is a 4.
I think so too. Reanimator, maybe if you're really heavy delirium. But yeah, 4 on average.
Fear of Lost Teeth. This is a 1/1 that says when it dies, it deals 1 damage to any target and you gain a life. Okay, so more life gain, but more importantly, any target is important. And Rakdos does have the sort of sacrifice, so you can decide when you want to do that. It also trades up really well, and it's an enchantment. So I do think this is playable. It's probably like a 4 with the ability to play up in the right deck.
Sounds right. It trades up on mana, right? It deals with their 2/2s, which is nice for 1, but it's still pretty overall low impact, so I like it at 4.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, Fear the Dark, 5 mana for a 5/5 Nightmare. It's an enchantment. When it attacks, if defending player controls no Glimmer creatures, it gains Menace and Death Touch till end of turn. Menace and Death Touch on a 5/5 is pretty good. And there's not that many Glimmers. There's certainly cards that make them that are, common and uncommon, but a lot of decks just don't have them.
Anytime you get, there are some really nice keyword combinations. A lot of times involving Death Touch. Trample is one. Menace is another one because it forces the 2-for-1, which is really nice.
Rating-wise, what are you thinking?
5 mana 5/5 is fine on its own, not exciting. You get some keywords. That's probably like a 5. Like filler, just because 5 drops you tend to find something more powerful than this in that spot.
Yeah, I agree. Enchantment is nice. The ability is good, but I'm going to say 5.5. I'm going to give it a little bit of an edge.
You just wanted to add a 5 for the 5 mana 5/5 to be a 5.5.
Yeah, and it's an enchantment. Final Vengeance, 1 mana for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature or an enchantment. And then you can exile target creature. I do like the exile. There's a lot of recursion stuff. A lot of stuff that just randomly get stuff back out of the graveyard. Far more than usual. So, this card's always good. Hesitant to give it the full 8. But I'm going to say it's like a 7.5.
Yeah, I keep it out of the 8 range just because you can have too many of these, unlike the real premium ones. But
and they can be bad
cheap.
top decks in like poor situations too.
Sure. But 7.5 seems pretty good.
All right, next up.
Funeral Room and Awakening Hall. So Funeral Room is 2 and a black. For whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. Awakening Hall is 8 mana, 6 black. When you unlock this door, return all creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield.
Huh.
So that's a game-winning effect if you can get to 8 mana.
Yeah. It's the other side of it though is kind of sad because it just doesn't do anything. Like it does a little, but it doesn't help enough. How often are you going to get to 8 mana?
I guess if you're in enough of a sacrifice stack, maybe you can the slow drains help keep you alive long enough to get to 8. I don't know. Those decks usually want to be fairly aggressive, though.
Someone in chat says it's very good with S. I don't know what S is. Is S the snake? Yeah, I think this is fine.
think its effect is powerful enough that I think you're probably going to try to put it in your deck and make it work. But you are going to get caught within your hand, so
I'm going to say it's a 5, and here's why. It's a weird rating because it's playable. You're going to put it in your decks, like you said. You're not going to want to cut this because it can just win the game. But a good number of the times, it's going to drain for 3, and the game will end one way or the other, and you won't do the thing. And so it'll have averaged out to not having done a ton. The number of times you have it, play it, and actually win because of the second side. Eh?
yeah,
Feels
I don't know if black is designed to try to get to 8. I guess maybe blue black is.
well, Golgari certainly is.
Okay. It's just weird because like the left side feels like it would be better with Rakdos, which is not. I don't know. It's a mythic. It's weird.
I don't know. By the time you get to 8, I feel like there's going to be some green creatures in your graveyard that would be
True.
great to get back.
Yeah, I guess green can up ramp you.
Yeah. So it's a weird card, right? It's gonna play like a 0 in your fast aggro games where you're on the draw, and when you're on the play and you're ahead, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna seal the deal. Or anytime you're at like a board stall, I guess too. Also, it would be very good. So it's results may vary. I'm gonna say it's a 5.
Oh, that works.
Give into Violence. We've got 2 mana for an instant, +2/+2, and gains lifelink until end of turn. +2/+2 for 2 mana. It's okay. I like the -2/-2 better. But lifelink is probably going to be a little relevant. We've seen a lot of it. And 4.5.
I think I'm a 4. It's just we see so many better combat tricks these days.
Grievous Wounds. 5 mana for an aura. Enchant player. That player cannot gain life. Enchant player is, whenever they are dealt damage, they lose half their life rounded up. This would be pretty interesting if you had, like, Dimir Flyers.
Sure.
But at 5 mana do nothing. I'm not into this card. Even Dimir Flyers, like, it's just so bad if you're not ahead. It's so bad most of the time. It's a 1.
Agreed. Not playing this card.
All right. Next up, we've got the Rat of the format, a 2 mana 1/1 that when it dies, you manifest Dread. I found this to be pretty good. It was a good sack target. It was a good recursion target, like just easy, good curve filler. Let you get Delirium into your graveyard, let you get better creatures off the top of your deck because you could like manifest them and flip them, so you got to dig deeper for your bombs. Found it to be good. I'm just gonna say it's a 5 though.
I think so. I swear every time I see this card, I'm going to assume it has Death Touch because it's a 2 mana 1/1 rat.
Yeah, or sometimes they make you discard, right?
True.
This one just turns into a slightly bigger rat. Killer's Mask, 3 mana for an equip artifact. When it enters, you manifest Dread, and then you attach it, and the equipped creature gets Menace. 3 mana for a manifest Dread with Menace that then gives future things Menace. I'm playing that. That's a 6? That's a 6.
I think so. It's
In the Delirium color? Hell yeah.
true. It helps fill your graveyard. And sometimes you get lucky and you hit something you can flip over
Yeah.
and get a bigger menacer.
What do you think?
I like it 6.
This is the one I was telling you about. Let's play a game. 4 mana for a Delirium sorcery. You choose 1 unless you have Delirium, and then creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. Each opponent discards 2 cards, or you drain for 3 life. This fucking sucked. They like killed 2 creatures, drained me for 6, and I discarded 2, so it was just like a brutal like 4 for 1, where I also just lost half my life. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, talk about your swings between having and not having Delirium. I guess, a 4 mana Mind Rot is not good, but it's not the worst.
I definitely did use it as that a couple of times when I was like, you have 2 cards in hand. I'm not going to bother waiting. And it was fine. So the you're paying a little extra for the flexibility and for it to just be the nuts. It was a pretty good post-combat trick as well. Like I would just get into combat and then like blow out their entire board with the -1/-1.
Yeah, the fact that unlike Mind Rot, it's never completely dead. Like at absolute worst, you can just have a 6-point life swing. Where Mind
Yeah.
Rot sometimes is just a completely dead card.
Rating wise, what are you thinking?
I'm going to have this at like a 6 on average. Again, in your heavy Delirium deck, it's obviously going to be better than that, but I don't know how many of those there are outside of how common that's going to be.
I think it's probably a 6 for the first one, and then it just like drastically goes down in quality
Agreed.
after that.
Definitely.
Leyline of the Void. Blah, 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 blah. For 4 mana, if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. Sideboard card. I could see putting this in against a heavy Delirium deck, but like most of us are playing best of 1 on Arena, so it's just a 1. But I would still probably take this as a free rare in a paper draft, like, in the second half of the pack, just to board it in.
Just to have it for constructed.
Is it going to be a good and constructed?
Oh, I don't know about standard, but Leyline of the Void is always a useful sideboard card in some format.
There's a billion of them, right?
Legacy. Yeah, it's not worth a crazy amount anymore. It was a $40, $50 card at one point, but
I do remember that.
No, I mean this will be very tilting in game 2 if you're a Delirium player and they open with Leyline of the Void.
Yep. Next up, 5 mana, live or die. You choose one, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield at instant speed. That's pretty neat. Or you can destroy a creature for 5 mana at instant speed. The flexibility on this is great. Easy 8.
Agreed. I think it's close to an 8 if it was just destroy target creature at instant speed. It's not at 5 mana, but having both makes it great.
I don't want to read all of these words. Meat Hook Massacre the Second. XX black 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 something something. It's like banana. I forgot how far to go. Legendary enchantment, and when it enters, each player sacrifices X creature. Each player. Whenever a creature you control dies, you may pay 3 life. If you do, return that card under your control with a finality counter on it. Okay for ETBs. Whenever a creature an opponent controlled dies, that player may pay 3 life. If they don't, return that card under your control with a finality counter on it. The last brick there, it got me. That's good. That's funny. Give me all of your creatures or die. What a stupid card.
It's a stupidly powerful effect. I'm not sure this card is actually good though. Just because of its mana cost.
Yeah.
The 4 black alone is a problem, but 6 mana, they sacrifice their worst creature and give it to you, or pay 3.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta cast this really for 8 probably.
Yep.
For it to be good, and that's a lot to ask.
And they have to have like only 2 creatures. If they've got like bunnies or whatever, the equivalent of bunnies in this set, then you're just like, take 3, give you a 1/1 or whatever.
If you're mono black or heavy black that you're playing 12 swamps or something, sure. But otherwise, I think this is just, the cost is just prohibitive.
Yeah. I'm not playing this. I'm gonna say it's a 2 because there's a mono black deck where I probably will still try to play this.
Yeah, in that deck, it's probably like a 7, but it's on average, it's going to be a 2.
Yeah. Next up, a 6 mana 5/4 flying demon, and when it enters, you may discard any number of cards. When you do, up to that many target creatures each get -2/-2. Now, it's important to note that they don't stack, so you can't like discard 4 cards and give -8/-8 or whatever. But I think it's still good. 6 mana, you probably have a land or 2 that you've squirreled away. It's fine. This is like,
it's like a 6.
I think it's a 6 as well. Like, the ability is not that exciting because it's 6 mana and you have to have the cards to do it. And it might not be relevant. -2/-2 might not be relevant. And then it's an okay beater, but it's a little underwhelming for a 6 drop.
Agree with all that.
Great.
But
6.
but it's still a big flyer, so 6.
Next up, we got Red Rum, 3 mana for destroy a creature at instant speed. This has gotten significantly worse. Even though I keep drafting it like it's a bomb, it's not. But it's good. It's fine. It's no longer, is this no longer premium removal? It doesn't do anything else. God, I hate my life in this limited.
I
Why?
think I think it is still premium removal, but I
Yeah, it
think
is.
we're getting to the point where we just may have to reconsider what premium removal is rated.
The last time Murder was printed was like 2 or 3 sets ago or whatever, and I had like 4 of them, and I just like 2-3'd. I was like, what? Like these were my bread and butter drafts. Like, oh god, those were the days. Okay, yeah, it's fine. It's still an 8, but I'm sad it's not as good as it was.
Agreed.
Nowhere to Run, 2 mana for an enchantment with Flash. The creature gets -3/-3 till end of turn. Creatures your opponents control can be the target of spells and abilities as though they didn't have Hexproof Ward, and it doesn't. Ward abilities don't trigger. Yeah. I don't know how relevant that will be, but 2 mana -3/-3 Flash, which also triggers the Death Crabs, which this card was the one that sealed the deal and killed me. Yes, card's great. This is an 8.
Gonna kill enough. It's an instant speed, get your enchantment triggers, and the bottom is probably mostly trinket text, but hey, if it comes up, great. It's only a plus. 8.
Yeah. Next up, 2 mana 2/2 with Lifelink and Delirium. It's an artifact Scarecrow. Whenever you Delirium, if there are 4 or more card types, blah, 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 each opponent may sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. Then this deals damage equal to its power to each opponent who didn't sacrifice a permanent or discard a card. It's a 2/2 with Lifelink that will continue to hit them for 2. And you still gain the 2 because it deals the damage to them. I like this. This is great. This is a 6.
It doesn't have to attack, which is nice.
Yeah.
To get that trigger, you just have to have Delirium. Yeah, I like it as a 6.
Next up, we have Overlord Merc, 5 mana for a 5/5 with Impending 2. That's the cheapest, but it is impending 1 extra. Whenever it enters or attacks, mill 4 cards, then you may return a non-avatar creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. This is like the first one also that doesn't affect the board the turn it comes out.
Yeah.
And it's also the first one you don't want to play on curve.
I guess the blue one is it's draw 2, discard 1, so I guess that doesn't affect the board.
Yeah, but you still want to play it as fast as you can.
You do, yeah. The on curve part, you're definitely right.
And it could affect the board if like you need to hit your land drop or something.
Sure.
This is still good. It's just not as bomby as the other ones.
No, and it's the mill thing can be helpful, and I'm thinking once you get it to be a creature, it's also dangerous. It's not a May. You must mill,
Yeah.
and it's not like this has no evasion or trample or anything.
And you just have a 5/5 you can't attack with.
Yeah.
It's still good, but I'm gonna drop it. Like the white one was just straight up 10. I think this is like a 7, an 8, 7 or an 8. I think it's an 8. It'll win the game if it runs amok.
Agreed. I think it's an 8. It's the fact that you don't want to play it on curve and it's got a longer impending is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really weird. Next up, we have a 3 mana 3/2, pay 2, sacrifice another creature. When you do, this gains indestructible and you can tap it. And whenever you sacrifice a permanent, you get to drain a life. Yeah, I found this to be really good in my sealed pool. I was able to sacrifice things. I was able to like sack my squad and kill people like 2 times in the sealed pool, which was really nice. And there was times where you get into combat, sacrifice something small, kill their thing. It was a great blocker because you were able to trade up massively with all your like little poopy guys because this thing is just indestructible. I liked it. I think this is a 6. Maybe it'll play down in decks that don't have good things to sacrifice or recursion.
6 seems about right. It's gonna be solid a decent amount of the time, and but great probably infrequently.
Yeah, agreed. All right, next up we have the Resurrected Cultist, a 3-mana 4/1 with Delirium. You can pay 4 and return it from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it, which does trigger like the door that we saw that makes 2/2s. That's what this is the card that I used to do that, which was neat.
Okay.
It's a 3-mana 4/1, and they have to deal with it twice. It's okay.
Yeah,
I like that I'm
the
not
thing
punished for not having Delirium while it's out. It's just like a later game thing. I think this is a 5.
true. Probably a little lower on it, just because a lot of times, even if you're getting 2 cards for it, you're probably seriously losing on mana in the exchange. Because it's a 4/1, so it's so easy for them to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's not unplayable, and if you're heavy Delirium, great, or if you have ways to mill it and just get a little extra value that way, sure, but I think I'm probably having like a 4.
All right. Spectral Snatcher, 6 mana for a 6/5 with Ward. Discard a card, and it has Swamp Cycling. Discarding a card Ward is really freaking annoying. It's like a guaranteed 2-for-1. It's got good stats, and it doesn't hurt you for having expensive stuff in your graveyard due to Swamp Cycling. These are great. This is like a 6.
All the land cyclers are going to be definitely above average, and this is no different. 6 seems right.
Next up, we have Sporogenic Infection, 2 mana for an enchant aura. Whenever it enters, target player sacrifices a creature other than the enchanted creature. When enchanted creature is dealt damage, destroy it. It's the second time we've seen that mechanic.
It is.
Weird.
So you put this on their worst creature,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
And then their worst creature also just dies easier.
Yeah,
It's weird.
I guess oftentimes their worst creature is going to have 1 power and would just die anyway.
I'm playing this, but I'm not excited. Making them, kill their second or third weakest creature, or sometimes their first. Like having 2 creatures on the board is like pretty reasonable some amount of the time. So I'm still playing this. I think it's like a 6.
Sounds about right. Certainly not premium, but you'll play it.
Next up.
Next up, our next room, Unholy Annex and Ritual Chamber. Unholy Annex is 2 and a black. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card. If you control a demon, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2, otherwise you lose 2. Ritual Chamber is 5 mana, 3 black. When you lock this door, make a 6/6 black demon token with flying.
I definitely almost killed myself with the left side of that, but it was good. 5 mana, make a 6/6 flyer. Easy game, good card. And then I even played it for 3 without a demon and still managed to get there. It wasn't too bad. It was like a really, really bad a Phyrexian Arena.
Phyrexian Arena, yeah.
Real quick, just to note someone's comment here, wouldn't you want to put it on their best creature and then ping it? What are you going to ping it with? If they have a 5/5 flyer and you don't have a 1/1 flyer, how do you ping it?
Yeah, if you have a pinger, by all means, yes, but
There's very few creatures that like target a creature and deal 1 damage. Now you could put it on their best creature and then shoot it with something else because it wasn't combat damage. So you could shoot it with like a shock or something, but you're still 2-for-1ing yourself on that exchange. And that might be right some of the time, but I don't think you are very often going to want to put it on their best creature.
I think the weird thing with that card is if they have exactly 2 creatures, you're going to put it on their worst creature. It gets interesting if they have 3 creatures. Because then you... Go ahead.
I think you're still always putting it on the worst creature, right? Why would you put it on the middle or the top and let them discard the worst?
Well, the argument is depending on what the best creature is. Like if it's not a flyer and it's just a ground creature, then
it depends on the board state, certainly.
Because if you put it on the worst creature, you're just not that. Then you're just leaving their best creature untouched.
Assuming you have a good way of stopping them from attacking or protecting it or using its ability, then sure. But yeah, if it's like a card that's not attacking anyway because it's using an ability, or if it's a flyer, then yeah, I think it's most likely going to just be the weaker creature.
Agreed.
Yeah, this card's good. I think this card wins games.
I mean, either half of this card can win. And
Yeah.
the nice thing about the um, Unholy Annex as opposed to like a Phyrexian Arena is the card has a built-in way of stopping the life loss.
Yeah. There's
Now
not
they can
that
kill
many
you.
demons.
No, but but at least you get to make one.
Yes. So you have the one, but then like most of the other demons were like rare, like, 6 black pips or whatever. But I still think the 6 mana, 6, or the 5 mana, 6/6 is just good enough. So I'm going to say this is an 8.
I I think I might almost want to say it's like a 9. I really like this card because both halves can win the game.
Next up, we have the Unstoppable Slasher, 3 mana for a 2/3 with Death Touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. When it dies, if it had no counters on it, return it to the battlefield, tapped under its owner's control with a stun counter on it. With a stun counter? So I thought I was going to say a finality counter or like what's the stupid kitchen finks thing where that thing?
Oh yeah, we'll get to but persist -1/-1, and
Yeah, I
then
thought it was going to be like a persisty thing.
it is 2 stun counters.
I don't care. They go away. That means they have to like that there's are two for wanting themselves, right? Like they put it in combat and then they had to remove it while it had stun counters, or it untaps and we get into combat again and then it just comes back.
Uh,
Oh god.
yeah, about the only thing this can't do is be like an infinite sack outlet because you'd have to wait for that to go, or sack fodder because you'd have to wait for it to go away. But other than that, yeah, this card's terrifying.
You could blink it. You could like I mean, that said, it's still a 3 mana 2/3 with Death Touch that like 2-for-1s, but this can win games. Like if they connect with this, they have to trade every single time that you attack. They have to trade,
Exactly.
or they take all their life, and then once they have traded, they have to find a removal for it before you untap it. This is great. This is an 8.
Agreed. I like it at 8. You better hope you have an exile spell to deal with this or some sort of lockdown enchantment.
Valgavoth, Terror of Eater, something. 6 black, black, black for an Elder Demon 9/9, flying with lifelink and ward, sacrifice 3 non-land permanents. Holy shit. If a card you didn't control was put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. During your turn, you may play cards exiled with Valgavoth. Shit. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana cost rather than paying its mana cost, which is fine because this has 9 power lifelink. This is not for limited. Like I want to say it ends games, but like if you get to 9, sure.
Yeah, this is for Reanimator.
Yeah. And some games get to 9, but now if you are like strong black and you're like Golgari, well no, not Golgari, you're Golgari because that's not reanimating as much. So if you're like strong black Golgari, are you playing this? Last pick? Does it make the cut?
If I'm Golgari and I have some ramp, then sure. If I'm Demir, probably not.
And Orzhov, yes, because that's
Or
reanimator,
something
right?
else. Rakdos is probably way too slow.
So is this just like a 4 that wins games? It like
I
makes
mean,
the cut sometimes, but like it's
it's
real.
it's like a definition of a split card almost because it's like in literally half of the black decks, it's probably fine.
But even in those decks, it's still fine, right? Like it's still questionable that you're going to get that far.
I guess in black green it's questionable. Black white it's just good, assuming you're actually doing the reanimator thing.
Yeah. But black green, you're also a lot more likely to get to 9 and have ramp spells, like and ramp creatures. There's a couple of mana dorks.
True. I would definitely play. I think I would play it. I would obviously playing it in Orzhov. I'm probably playing it in Golduari. If my Demir is control-y, so it wants to play a long game, so maybe.
I'm going to say this is a 4. It's a deck that's going to make the cut a good number of times, but it is a deck, it's a card that probably shouldn't make the cut most of the time. And if you play it, good job, you win. Eh?
I think I'm gonna give it. I don't know. I want to give it like a 7 just because it's so scary. but it's that you are going to cut this card, and you're not cutting 7, so I don't know.
I feel like by the time you get to 9, like, the games are going to be decided. Like, you've either won or you've lost. And, like, maybe they were going to swing next turn and kill you, and you just get to 9 and it saves the day. But, like, that's so unlikely.
Maybe it's just like I want games to last long enough to get to 9.
I
Even if
agree.
they're not going to.
If we lived in that world, I would be hanging out in that world, but
Yeah.
we're not there. Valgavas Faithful, 1 mana for a 1/1 human cleric. You can pay 4, sacrifice it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate only as a sorcery. That's fine. It's an okay 1-drop.
It's kind of funny that Valgavoth is a 9-drop and its Faithful is 1.
Yeah, and you can recur it here for this amount of mana for 4. Easy. So you manifest Dreaded into your graveyard, sacrifice Valgavoth. You're good. Great. If you have this deck, then that's going to be really, really cool. I think this one's playable. It's going to be a 5. It's kind of fillery. And then it'll play up in the decks that are trying to reanimate.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically considering this to be just a 5-mana reanimation spell. More so than because the 1/1 body doesn't do much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
All right. Vile Mutilator. Ugh. A 7-mana demon that's a 6/5 flying flampler. It's just a 6/5 flampler. No need to double up the flying.
Both flying and flammable.
Yeah. As initial cost to cast, sacrifice a creature or an enchantment. And when it enters, each opponent sacrifices a non-token enchantment, then sacrifices a non-token creature. I feel like there's a good chance that this will be 2 for 1. It's just
2 for 2.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're probably setting that up right where you have things to sacrifice specifically, or like rooms that are dead that you've already gotten the triggers out of. But it's so expensive. I played against it in limited and it was like fine, but like it didn't lose me the game. So
I mean, they're certainly setting up the large, scary creature portion of the reanimation deck pretty well.
5. I think it is a 5.
I agree. Again, there's a few creatures here that you're going to get late, I think, if you're playing Orzhov, because other decks don't want them.
Yeah, it's interesting. The demons are all so big and scary, and we didn't really see... I guess those are mostly devils. I was thinking I'm used to seeing like the little ones, but I think that's actually devils. So
devils, yeah.
All right. Oh my god, it just keeps going forever and ever. Next up, we have a 2-mana instant. It deals 2 damage to target creature. You gain 2 life. This is a 7. Why we're shocking in black, I have no idea, but here we are.
You know, and I'm seeing all these 7/7s and 9/9s. I'm like, okay, deal 2. No, it's a 2-mana removal spell. So yeah, I agree with that as a 7.
All right. Withering Torment. 3 mana for destroy target creature or enchantment. Lose 2 life at instant speed. That's an 8.
Well, just state for the record, black should not be getting destroy target enchantment. But yes, it's an 8. Black should be getting weird, awkward ways to deal with enchantments, like you sacrifice or... I forget, it was like feed. I guess they did do feed the
swarm. And you lost life based on its mana cost.
Yeah.
So this is just better.
Yeah, black's not supposed to be able to do this.
Feed is also sorcery speed.
Yeah.
All right, that's the end of black. What do you think, Yanks?
I didn't see a ton, I thought, for Dimir, which was interesting.
Yeah, I will say black seemed less like synergy specific as white and blue did.
Yeah, there's a lot for Reanimator and a decent amount to like fuel your graveyard, but I mean, I didn't see a few things that were nice with Sacrifice. Maybe we'll see more of that in red, but not a lot.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, there wasn't that much. A lot of good removal, though.
Yes.
All right. YouTube, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the set so far. Don't forget to check out the introduction and don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help out the channel. We're trying to revive it and get more YouTube content going, so your support is very much appreciated. All right, we'll see you guys next time for Red. Bye.